Have you ever noticed that the moment you started becoming someone better, someone you had always wanted to be, certain people in your life stopped being happy for you? Not strangers, not people who never knew you. The ones who were supposed to be closest. The ones who sat across from you at dinner tables for years, who called you when they needed someone, who knew your history and your struggles and your name. Those people, the ones whose opinion you cared about most, the ones whose approval you had, quietly and perhaps without fully realizing it, been organizing a part of your life around for longer than you would like to admit. You started waking up earlier. You started working on something that mattered to you. You started saying no to things that were draining you and yes to things that were building you. You started looking different, speaking differently, carrying yourself in ways that felt more aligned with the person you were genuinely trying to become. And you noticed something. Not immediately, and not all at once, but gradually, and then undeniably. The energy shifted. The jokes changed. Someone who used to call regularly started going quiet. Someone who used to encourage you started asking questions that felt less like curiosity and more like challenges. And you told yourself you were imagining it. Because the alternative, that someone who cared about you was made genuinely uncomfortable by your improvement, seemed too strange, too sad, and too painful to fully accept. You were not imagining it. What you were experiencing was something psychologists have documented across decades of research into human behavior, social dynamics, and the specific way certain people respond when the people around them begin to change. It has a name. It has a mechanism. It has specific patterns that, once you understand them clearly, become almost impossible to mistake for anything else. And here is the part that changes everything once you finally allow yourself to hear it. Their reaction to your growth is not about you. It never was. It is about them. About their own relationship with who they are, where they are, and what your progress forces them to confront about themselves that they would rather not look at directly. By the end of this audiobook, you will understand exactly why toxic people react this way when you start doing better. You will understand the psychology behind the jealousy, the sabotage, the guilt-tripping, and the quiet cruelty that sometimes follows genuine self-improvement. You will understand why certain relationships cannot survive your growth and why that is not a reason to stop growing. And you will understand, clearly and without self-doubt, how to keep becoming the person you are meant to be, even when the people around you would rather you stayed exactly where you were. Their discomfort with your growth is not your problem to solve. It is their work to do. Chapter 1. Why growth threatens people who are not growing. To understand why certain people become hostile, distant, or subtly destructive when someone close to them begins to improve, you first need to understand something fundamental about how human beings use the people around them to construct and maintain their sense of who they are. Human identity is not built in isolation. It is built relationally, through comparison, through reflection, through the ongoing, largely unconscious process of measuring oneself against the people in one's immediate environment. This is not vanity or weakness. It is simply how human psychology works. We understand ourselves, in significant part, through our relationship to the people around us. We know where we stand by looking at where others stand relative to us. We develop our sense of what is possible, what is normal, and what we are capable of, in large part through what we observe in the people closest to us. This process is mostly invisible. It happens below the level of conscious awareness in the background of daily life, so quietly and so automatically that most people would deny it entirely if asked whether they compare themselves to others. But the evidence for it is everywhere. In the documented phenomenon of social comparison theory, first formalized by psychologist Leon Festinger in 1954, which demonstrates that human beings have a fundamental drive to evaluate their own opinions and abilities by comparing them to those of other people, particularly people they perceive as similar to themselves. Now consider what happens inside this system when one person begins to change significantly. When someone who occupied a particular position in the social comparison landscape suddenly begins moving, begins improving, begins occupying a different position than the one everyone had grown accustomed to them holding. For people with a healthy, secure sense of self, this movement is neutral or even inspiring. It updates their sense of what is possible. It may motivate them to examine their own situation. It does not threaten them because their sense of who they are does not depend on the other person staying exactly where they were. But for people whose sense of self is fragile, insecure, or heavily dependent on external comparison, the situation is entirely different. Your improvement does not just update their landscape, it disrupts it. It moves a reference point they had been using to feel okay about their own position without having to examine that position directly. It forces a confrontation with a question they would rather not answer. If this person can change, what does it say about me that I haven't? That question is painful, and people who are not equipped to sit with painful self-examination do not sit with it. They redirect the discomfort outward. They find ways to explain away your growth, minimize it, challenge it, or undermine it. Because undermining your growth is far more immediately comfortable than confronting their own stagnation. It is not a conscious strategy in most cases. It is a psychological reflex, a defensive response to a threat they may not even be able to fully articulate. Understanding this mechanism does not mean you should feel sorry for the people doing it, at least not in ways that cause you to slow your own progress to manage their discomfort. It means you should understand what you are actually dealing with, so that you stop interpreting their reaction as meaningful feedback about whether your growth is right or real or warranted. It is not feedback. It is a symptom. And the symptom belongs entirely to them. Their discomfort with your growth is not your problem to solve. It is their work to do. Chapter 2. The Psychology of Toxic Jealousy. What it really is. Jealousy, in its ordinary form, is a human experience so universal that virtually no one reaches adulthood without having felt it in some recognizable form. The brief, uncomfortable awareness that someone else has something you want, an opportunity, a relationship, a quality, a success, is not pathological. It is simply human. And in its healthy expression, ordinary jealousy can even be useful. It can function as a signal, pointing toward what we genuinely value and have not yet achieved, motivating us toward our own growth rather than away from someone else's. Toxic jealousy is something categorically different. It is not a brief, uncomfortable awareness that passes and motivates. It is a sustained, consuming orientation toward another person's success or improvement that generates not motivation but resentment, a deep, often irrational hostility toward someone for the simple crime of doing well. At the core of toxic jealousy is what psychologists call a fixed mindset orientation toward human capacity. The deep, often unconscious belief that qualities like intelligence, talent, success, and worth are fixed quantities rather than developable skills. People who operate from this orientation do not experience the world as a place where anyone can grow and improve with effort and commitment. They experience it as a place where there is a limited supply of good outcomes and where someone else's gain necessarily represents, in some way, their loss. From inside this orientation, your improvement is not inspiring. It is threatening. There is also, beneath the jealousy, a layer of shame that is almost never acknowledged directly, but which drives much of the hostile behavior that follows. Because toxic jealousy is not just about wanting what you have. It is about not wanting to examine why they don't have it. Your success, your growth, your improvement, all of it holds up a mirror that reflects back something they would rather not see about their own choices, their own stagnation, their own relationship with the possibility of change. And the easiest way to make that mirror go away is not to do their own work. It is to break the mirror. You do not have to accommodate this. You do not have to slow your growth to protect someone from the reflection it creates. But understanding it changes how you receive it. It transforms the hostile comment from a meaningful assessment of your progress into what it actually is. A person in pain, deflecting that pain outward in the only direction that temporarily makes it more bearable. Their discomfort with your growth is not your problem to solve. It is their work to do. Chapter 3. How toxic people sabotage your progress without you noticing. Sabotage, in the context of toxic relationships and personal growth, almost never looks the way we imagine it will. It is almost never direct. It is almost never obvious. It does not arrive wearing its own name, clearly labeled and easy to identify and reject. Instead, it arrives disguised, wearing the costume of concern, of humor, of practical advice, of loyalty, of love. The first and most common form of sabotage is what might be called the concerned question. Are you sure this is realistic for someone in your situation? Don't you think you're moving a little fast with this? Have you really thought through what happens if it doesn't work out? Each of these questions sounds, on its surface, like reasonable caution from someone who cares about your well-being. But delivered consistently, at the exact moment when your confidence is building, when you are most vulnerable to self-doubt, they function as precision instruments designed to introduce a specific kind of uncertainty. The uncertainty of whether you are actually capable of what you are attempting. The second form is the reframed compliment. I'm impressed you've kept this up for 2 whole months. It's great that you're trying something new, even if it doesn't work out. You seem really committed to this, which is so different for you. Each of these statements contains the shape of support while delivering the substance of doubt. The compliment is real enough to deflect the accusation of negativity, but the framing plants a seed that takes root in the quietest, most self-doubting part of the listener's mind. The third form is the social undermining. This is the sabotage that happens not directly to you, but around you. In conversations with mutual friends, family members, or colleagues that you are not present for and may never fully hear about. Your growth is described as a phase. Your new habits are characterized as extreme or obsessive. Your changed priorities are framed as you becoming difficult, distant, or arrogant. The fourth form, and perhaps the most insidious, is the creation of crisis. Significant personal developments for the saboteur, emergencies, conflicts, needs for support, dramatic situations requiring your attention and time. seem to occur with suspicious reliability at exactly the moments when your own momentum is highest and your focus on your growth is most concentrated. Recognizing these patterns is not about becoming suspicious of everyone who expresses concern or caution about your choices. The distinction is in the pattern, the consistency, the timing, the effect on your confidence and momentum, and most tellingly, the way the person delivering the concern responds when your growth continues despite their doubts. Someone who genuinely supports you adjusts to your growth. Someone who is sabotaging you escalates. Chapter 4. Why they need you to stay the same. There is a question underneath all of this that deserves to be asked directly and answered honestly. That question is, why? Not just why do they react negatively, but why does it seem so important to them? Why does it feel, when you look closely at the pattern, almost urgent, that you specifically stay exactly where you were? The answer has several layers. The first layer is identity interdependence. Many relationships develop an implicit structure over time in which each person occupies a particular role, and the stability of the relationship depends on those roles remaining consistent. The successful one and the struggling one, the responsible one and the irresponsible one, the one who gives advice and the one who receives it. When you grow, when you change significantly and visibly, you disrupt your role in this structure. And disrupting your role automatically disrupts the other person's role as well, because the two are defined in relation to each other. The second layer is fear of abandonment. Growth changes people. It changes their priorities, their interests, their time allocation, their social needs, and sometimes their values. People who are close to someone growing are often, on some level, afraid that the person who emerges from the growth process will no longer want or need the relationship in the same way. The third layer is the simple arithmetic of change as implicit criticism. When you change your diet, the people around you who have not changed theirs experience your change as a comment on their choices, even if you say nothing at all. When you leave a toxic dynamic, the people who remain in similar dynamics often experience your departure as an implicit statement about their choice to stay. You did not say anything. You simply changed. But change is visible, and visibility creates the experience of being seen in comparison. And being seen in comparison by someone who has made a different choice can feel uncomfortably like being assessed and found wanting. Their discomfort with your growth is not your problem to solve. It is their work to do. Chapter 5. The relationship dynamics that cannot survive your growth. Not every relationship that struggles with your growth is toxic at its core. Some relationships are simply built on a specific dynamic that your growth has outgrown, and the struggle is the natural consequence of a structure trying to accommodate something it was not designed to hold. A relationship built on mutual struggle is one of the most common casualties of personal growth. Two people connect over shared difficulty, financial stress, emotional pain, unhealthy habits, limited circumstances, and the connection is real and meaningful within that context. But when one person begins to move out of the shared difficulty, the relationship loses its primary foundation. This is not betrayal. It is simply the natural consequence of growth in a relationship built on a particular set of shared circumstances. A relationship built on your smallness is something quite different and considerably more serious. This is the relationship that was built not on mutual struggle or shared circumstances, but specifically on your occupying a diminished version of yourself. You were less confident, less capable, less ambitious, less aware of your own worth than you are now. And the relationship had an internal structure that depended on that diminishment. This kind of relationship has a very poor prognosis for surviving genuine growth, because what you are growing into is precisely what the relationship was structured around you not being. Every gain in your confidence, capability, or self-awareness is experienced by the other person as a direct subtraction from their position in the relationship. Recognizing that a relationship is built on your smallness is painful. It requires acknowledging that what felt like connection and care was, at some level, conditional on your remaining in a particular diminished state that served the other person's need to feel needed, superior, or significant. A relationship that requires your smallness as the price of admission is not a relationship that deserves the full version of who you are. Chapter 6. Guilt as a weapon. Why they make you feel bad for improving. Guilt is one of the most powerful emotional experiences in the human repertoire, and it is the preferred weapon of people who cannot tolerate your growth. Not because they have calculated this consciously and chosen it deliberately, but because guilt is the most immediately available tool for pulling a person who is oriented toward the well-being of others back toward a position of sacrifice and compliance. You take a step forward. You make a decision that serves your own growth, your own health, your own becoming. And immediately, sometimes within the same conversation in which you share the decision, the guilt begins to arrive. I just feel like I never see you anymore. It must be nice to have that kind of energy. I'm happy for you. I'm just worried about where this leaves me. Each of these statements is designed, whether consciously or not, to insert your growth into a moral framework in which improving yourself is a form of selfishness, a taking of something that should belong to others. And for empathic people, for people who genuinely care about the well-being of those around them, this moral framing is extraordinarily effective. The antidote to this form of manipulation begins with a simple but radical reframe. Your growth is not something that is being done to anyone. It is something that is being done for yourself. And the well-being of the people around you, whatever its current state, is not your responsibility to manage at the expense of your own becoming. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to become better. You are allowed to prioritize the person you are becoming, even when the people around you would prefer the person you were. And the guilt that arrives when you do these things is not a signal that you are doing something wrong. It is a signal that someone is trying to use your compassion against your own development. This is the moment in this audiobook to pause and share it with someone you know who is currently holding themselves back out of guilt, out of the fear that their growth will hurt someone who has quietly made their smallness a requirement. Sometimes the most important thing you can give another person is the language to recognize what is happening to them. Because once it has a name, it becomes much harder to dismiss. Their discomfort with your growth is not your problem to solve. It is their work to do. Chapter 7. How to recognize sabotage before it works. The most dangerous thing about sabotage in the context of personal growth is not that it is powerful, though it can be, but that it is often invisible until after it has already worked. Until after you have already slowed down, already second-guessed the decision, already pulled back from the commitment, already allowed the seed of doubt to grow into something that derailed your momentum. Real-time recognition is therefore the most important skill available to anyone navigating a growth period, while surrounded by people who are not supportive of that growth. The first signal to pay attention to is your own internal state immediately after interactions with specific people. After an interaction with a genuinely supportive person, you typically feel energized, clarified, or at minimum neutral about your path. After an interaction that contains sabotage, even when you cannot immediately identify what was said or done that accounts for it, you typically feel slightly less certain, slightly less motivated, slightly more doubtful about whether what you are doing is right or realistic or worth the cost. This internal shift is information. It is your nervous system processing something that your conscious mind has not yet fully identified, and it deserves to be taken seriously. The second signal is the timing of their doubts and concerns. Genuine concern from supportive people is relatively consistent. It is present when you first share a new direction. It asks questions, and then it adjusts as you demonstrate commitment and early results. Sabotage masquerading as concern has a very different timing signature. It tends to escalate precisely when your momentum is highest, your results are most visible, and your confidence is most clearly building. The third signal is how they respond to your wins. Genuinely supportive people respond to your wins with proportionate enthusiasm. People who are sabotaging your growth respond with a specific kind of deflation. That's great. But how sustainable is it really? I'm glad it's working for now. Does this mean you think you've figured it all out? The fourth signal, and this one requires particular honesty with yourself, is your own behavior change in response to their reactions. Have you started hiding your progress from certain people? Have you started downplaying your achievements before sharing them? Have you started timing your shares strategically? If so, these behavioral adaptations are not signs of modesty or strategic thinking. They are signs that you have already absorbed the lesson that certain people's reaction to your growth is something to manage and protect yourself from. Chapter 8. Why their reaction is actually confirmation you are on the right path. There is a reframe available in this situation that most people in the middle of it cannot access because the hurt is still too immediate and the confusion still too thick. But it is a reframe that, once it settles into genuine understanding rather than just intellectual agreement, changes everything about how you receive the hostility, the jealousy, the sabotage, and the subtle cruelty that sometimes accompanies other people's response to your growth. That reframe is this: their reaction is not evidence that something is wrong with what you are doing. It is evidence that what you are doing is working. Consider the logic of this carefully. Toxic people do not react strongly to things that are not actually changing. They react to visible, real, meaningful change. The intensity of their reaction is, in a very real sense, proportional to the realness of what you are doing. A half-hearted attempt at growth rarely generates significant hostile reaction. It is the genuine article, the real shift, the sustainable change, the growth that is clearly going somewhere, that generates the strongest pushback. This means that when the reaction is strong, when the jealousy is visible and the sabotage is active, and the guilt-tripping is escalating, it is a signal that you are doing something real, something that registers in the social landscape of the people around you as genuine movement rather than wishful thinking. This does not make their behavior acceptable. It does not mean you should be grateful for their hostility or celebrate their jealousy as a performance indicator. It means that you should stop interpreting their reaction as meaningful feedback about whether your path is right, and start interpreting it for what it actually is: environmental information about the fact that you are moving, that the movement is real, and that the people who cannot move with you are responding to that reality in the only ways currently available to them. Their discomfort with your growth is not your problem to solve. It is their work to do. Chapter 9. Protecting your growth from the people closest to you. Protecting your growth from the people who are threatened by it is one of the most practically challenging aspects of any serious self-improvement effort. And it is significantly more challenging than protecting it from strangers or distant critics. Strangers and distant critics have limited access to your life, your doubts, your vulnerable moments, and your history. The people closest to you have all of these things. The first strategy is the careful management of what you share, with whom, and when. This is not deception. It is discretion. The recognition that not every relationship is a safe container for every piece of your growth. And that sharing your progress with people who are likely to respond with sabotage is not courage or openness. Share your early, fragile growth with people who have shown themselves to be safe with fragile things. Share your doubts and struggles with people who help you work through them rather than amplify and weaponize them. Share your victories with people who can celebrate them without needing to minimize them. The second strategy is the deliberate cultivation of a growth circle. A small, carefully chosen group of people whose presence in your life actively supports your development rather than threatening it. These are not necessarily the people who have been in your life the longest or who occupy the most prominent positions in your social world. They are the people who respond to your growth with genuine enthusiasm, who challenge you toward more rather than pulling you toward less. The third strategy is the management of your own guilt responses when they are triggered by the people closest to you. This requires a specific kind of mental discipline, the ability to pause between the arrival of guilt and the behavioral response to guilt long enough to ask one honest question. Is this guilt proportionate to what I have actually done? Or is it a response to what someone else needs me to feel in order to maintain a dynamic that serves them more than it serves me? The fourth strategy is the most difficult and the most important. The willingness to allow relationships to change, and in some cases to end, when they cannot accommodate who you are becoming. People grow. Relationships must grow with them or be renegotiated into a form that can accommodate the growth that has occurred. When renegotiation is not possible, the appropriate response is not to sacrifice your growth to preserve the relationship. Their discomfort with your growth is not your problem to solve. It is their work to do. Chapter 10. Integration. Becoming someone who cannot be pulled back down. Everything in this audiobook has been building toward a destination that is more than just understanding, more than just recognition, more than just the clarity of finally having language for something you have been living through without being able to name. The final destination of this audiobook is something more durable than understanding. It is the development of what might be called gravitational immunity. The specific quality of self-rootedness that makes you genuinely, structurally difficult to pull back down to where you were. Not because you have built walls or closed yourself off or stopped caring about the people in your life, but because the growth you have undertaken has become so integrated into who you actually are that undermining it would require undermining your identity itself. This quality does not develop automatically through understanding alone. It develops through practice, through the repeated disciplined choice to continue growing even when the people around you are uncomfortable with that growth, through showing up for your own development on the days when the external pressure to abandon it is loudest. Through the accumulation of evidence, built one decision at a time, that you are the kind of person who does not stop becoming simply because becoming is difficult or unpopular or lonely in the specific way that growth sometimes is. There is something else worth saying here, clearly and without softening, about the people who have been threatened by your growth. They are not villains in your story, even when their behavior has caused real harm. They are people, complicated, wounded, limited in specific ways that your growth has had the misfortune of directly illuminating, who are doing the best they currently know how to do with the internal resources currently available to them. You cannot do their work for them. You cannot grow enough, or slowly enough, or in the right direction, or with sufficient consideration for their comfort to make their work unnecessary. Their work is theirs. It will remain theirs regardless of what you do or do not do. And the kindest thing you can do for them, and for yourself, is to stop organizing your growth around the management of their discomfort and start trusting that the version of you that continues to grow, that refuses to be pulled back, that becomes genuinely and structurally difficult to undermine, is not just better for you. It is better for everyone in your life who is capable of rising to meet who you are becoming, and an honest mirror for everyone who is not yet ready to do the same. You started this audiobook as someone trying to understand why the people closest to you seem to be made uncomfortable by the best version of yourself. You are finishing it as someone who understands not just the why, but the what this dynamic actually is, what it reveals about the people doing it, what it costs when you accommodate it, and what becomes possible when you refuse to. Keep going, not in spite of their discomfort, not to prove something to them or to anyone, but because the person you are becoming is real and valuable and needed. Their discomfort with your growth is not your problem to solve. It never was. It is their work to do. This has been Beyond Pages. If this audiobook gave you the language for something you have been living without words for, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The next chapter is already waiting for you.